This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of December 21st, 2015. There are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if when you're watching this video, you see something you like, just check out the description of this video where you will find a link to download each one of these 6 different free items. So first up here is Texture Pack Volume 4, Subtle Textures. These textures are provided in Illustrator, EPS, as well as Photoshop formats, so I have the Illustrator file opened up inside Illustrator here to show it because the vector ones can be sized as big or as small as you want and will give you a lot of versatility, but if you prefer working in Photoshop, that option is there for you. So each of the different textures is on its own layer inside Photoshop, and the same thing applies right here inside Illustrator. So I'm going to turn on and off these different layers very quickly so you can get a good idea of the different textures that you can expect. For the most part, these are pretty sparse or kind of lightly textured, so they shouldn't be too overbearing as you apply these to your actual work. And I'll zoom in a little bit closer after I get down to the last one right here. So this one right here is the last one. So I'll just zoom in a little bit closer here so you can get a good idea of how these look when you're a bit closer. Like I said before, these are pretty subtle in their appearance overall, but sometimes you don't want to overwhelm your work with a really strong texture that takes a bit too much out of it. So that's where textures like this come in a bit more handy because they're a bit more sparsely populated. That'll make your work shine through just that little bit better. Although ones like this are a bit harsher, or at least offer a little bit more coverage in case you're looking for a texture that has a bit more of an impact. And of course, since you're dealing with layers here, you could turn on multiple layers of different textures and have them overlapping each other, so you can get some really interesting effects as you continue to turn on more and more of these textures. So for example, if you want a really overpowering texture, you can turn on all these different layers, select that, and then apply that to your work. So because of that layered effect, you can really just mix and match these different textures and get a whole lot more combinations than the included ones if you want to go in there and make these that little bit more custom or really make the texture pattern suit the work that you're placing it on. But that's it for this pack. Like I said before, Illustrator, EPS, as well as Photoshop versions, so it should have you covered pretty much no matter what program you prefer to use. But if you like these and you think you'll have some use for them, just be sure to grab them this week while they're still free. Next up is Sannie Typeface. This font is providing both OpenType as well as TrueType font formats, and I have it opened up inside Adobe Illustrator here to show it. And as you can see, it's a hand-drawn looking script font in a style that's very popular right now. So I'll go to the lowercase letters up here first and zoom in just a little bit closer so you can get a good idea of what to expect when you're using this font. So the edges have a lot of irregularities that make this look much more hand-drawn. And as you can see, the letters also seem to do a pretty nice job of flowing into each other. I didn't notice any strange issues when I was looking at the way all the different letters connected, so that's a pretty big plus on this font. And the uppercase letters do a nice job of matching the overall stylistic choices of the lowercase letters above. And also included here are all the numbers 0 through 9, and then a bunch of different special characters as well. So I'm just going to go to type and then glyphs with that selected so you can see everything that is included here. So as you can tell, all the special characters are kind of in this section right here, so nothing too out of the ordinary. But then you go down to the lowercase letters here where you can tell there are additional accented marks. So they do offer a lot of different language support outside of English. So if you're using a Latin-based language that's not English, you should be pretty well covered with this particular font. And then I typed up Free Goods Roundup right here so you can see how it looks typed up into a sentence. As you can see, everything flows nicely together, and there's also some pretty cool stuff happening with the way the letters overall height changes, so they move up and down a little bit. That give us a bit more of a hill-like flow to the overall letter patterns that I think is pretty cool, and it makes it look just that little bit more hand-drawn because it's not totally perfect as the letters shift around the baseline a little bit here. So that's kind of a cool differentiating feature for this particular font that if you like that style, then this one is definitely worth picking up for you. So if you like this font and you think you'll have some use for it, or you have some projects in mind where this one might be a perfect fit, just be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. Next up is Light Leaks presets for Lightroom. This is a collection of 15 different light leak effects for Adobe Lightroom, so you are going to need Adobe Lightroom to go in and use this. And once you have your photo inside Lightroom that you want to use, just to quickly show you how to import these, make sure you're on the Develop tab in the upper right hand corner right here, and then under the Presets tab, there's a little plus icon that you can click that, and then select Folder. You can either use an existing folder or create a new folder and name it whatever you want, and then go ahead and create that when you're done. And then from that folder, you can right click on the folder and select Import. And you just want to navigate to the folder where you went ahead and put these different light leaks that you downloaded in the set, and just select them all and then hit the import button, and that'll go ahead and import them inside Lightroom for you. And once you have your photo imported inside Lightroom like this one right here, all you have to do to apply them is make sure that folder for the light leaks is opened up and then click on the different examples, and it'll go ahead and apply these effects. So showing this effect right here, you can tell this is actually a super cool effect with the light leaks on the edges right here. So a lot of these are actually a very powerful effect in the way that it transforms the picture. It really has a pretty substantial appearance change on many of these. A lot of them look a bit vintage or a bit sun damaged, which I think, for depending on how you tend to use this, could be a lot of fun for you to go in and experiment with, because as you can tell from the original photo to how they look when I actually go in here and apply these are some fairly substantial changes that make these a lot more lively in their appearance. It brings a lot of color, and it also makes things look a bit more vintage, which if you're going for that kind of a look, it can be kind of a cool way of doing that in a more stylistic way than just a typical desaturation or slightly manipulating colors, where this one's a bit more in your face. And also, even if you wanted to, you could export different designs in a JPEG format or something similar to that, and then bring that into Lightroom and apply these light leaks on top of your designs or illustrations, which might lead to an interesting effect that could be a bit of fun to experiment around with if you think that's a good idea. But that's it for this pack. A really cool set of 15 different light leaks, all of which have a fairly substantial effect on the photos or images you put them onto, which I think is a pretty cool thing if you're trying to make something really stand out from the crowd. So if you like these light leaks and you think you'll have some use for them, just be sure to pick them up this week. Next up is Vector Christmas Design Elements. These Christmas icons are provided in EPS format, and they also do include a JPEG and a PNG, but to get the most use out of these and make it really easy to go in and grab specific things and use them, the EPS file is really going to be your best bet. But this page right here shows everything that you'll get when you download this, so there is a really nice selection of different Christmas themed elements, or just winter or holiday themed elements in general. So there's various objects such as these birds right here that you can ungroup, for example the word Merry, and just use this bird by itself in case you want to use that. The color theme throughout this also is very strong. If you look at the banners behind the word Christmas right here, you can see that it has a color palette that you could really apply to a bunch of different stuff if you want a really soft and pastel based color palette to pick from and use. And as I go down here, there's some additional things, so feel free to use this how you see fit. Stuff like this ribbon right here, you could replace Happy New Year with pretty much any type that you would want to, and you can make it apply to pretty much anything. And the same goes for any of the other ribbons in this pack. But stuff like deer, bells, Christmas trees, and champagne glasses down here at the bottom, you can tell there's a pretty decent selection of stuff to pick from and use. So if you're on the hunt for some really nice vector graphics for this holiday season, then this one might be worth picking up for you. But even if you don't want to use these as Christmas or holiday themed, you can just ungroup a lot of them, pull off stuff like the type, if I actually ungroup this enough, and keep ungrouping it apparently. You can then use something like this deer silhouette right here on pretty much anything that you want to, even stuff that doesn't relate to the holiday season whatsoever. If you're doing something nature-based, there's some good nature-based stuff in here as well. But that's it for this pack. If you think you'll have some use for this one, I'd pick it up pretty darn quick here because the holiday season is fast approaching, and be sure to do it this week while it's still free. Next we have Multipurpose Business TriFold. This is a pretty straightforward item with two different layouts for the inside and the outside of a TriFold brochure. So here is the inside version in Photoshop, and as you can tell inside the layers palette here, everything's very nicely grouped into folders. So the text is in its own folder, the shapes are in its own folder, the image on the left here is in its own folder, and the same applies to the background here. So feel free to open these up and then you can go ahead and change whatever it is you want to change. For the most part, that should make it a little bit easier for you to go in and navigate, and you can feel free to rename stuff as you see fit. And they did go ahead and draw the guidelines where these are intended to be folded, so it'll make it a little bit easier for you to visualize how this thing will actually turn into a brochure as you go ahead and replace all this type with your own type, and the images, you can swap those out as well. However you want to use this, you can be free to do so. The type is fully live, so you can go in here and change all that nice and easily, and then you can also swap out these images to things that are more appropriate to you, or use the ones that they included if they're just fine as is. But a very professional looking layout here that should be extremely easy to customize. Just flip out the images, text, and icons as you see fit, like I said before, or if nothing else, you can just use this basic layout for a TriFold brochure and then replace basically everything visual in here if you wanted to, and then you'll have a nice template to at least have the layout done for you and ready to go, so you can kind of customize this as much as you see fit for whatever it is you're working on. But if you like this and you think you'll have some use for it, just be sure to grab this one this week while it's still free. And last up we have Petty Responsive Site Theme. So this is an HTML and CSS website template, and it isn't using a CMS like WordPress or something similar to that. So if you're looking for a really nice theme that does not use a CMS, then this one might be a pretty good place to start for you. And I'll just refresh it really quick so you can see that this does have a load-in animation effect as you come in here for the type on the big header image right here. And I'll just scroll down so you can see how this website behaves as you go down here. A lot of animated effects happen as you continue scrolling down, as you saw with the type up at the top here. And that'll continue on as I continue going down through the bottom here. here. They can be a little bit delayed sometimes, but you can feel free to go in and customize this a little bit too if you want to make the JavaScript behave a little bit differently if you have the skills to do so. If not, I don't think that's too big of a problem right there. At the very bottom here, we have a get in touch section with a map that you can go ahead and move, and then all the social icons that you would come to expect. Alternatively, you can use this top navigation that'll just automatically scroll you to whatever section it is that you want to go to. One thing I noted here, there isn't a contact us form, so you might want to add that in there before you apply this to your own website. But since this is not using a CMS like WordPress, sometimes people won't include something like that because you have to go in and add a little bit of additional code to make sure it talks to the server and sends it out to you after someone hits submit. But overall, this is a pretty clean website that functions very well, and it's also fully responsive, so it will look good on no matter what kind of device you're using it on, which is always a pretty big plus. So if you like the look of this website and you think you'll have some use for this one, just be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so if you saw something you might have use for, be sure to check out the description where you will find a link to download it. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday till you know it's free this week on Creative Market. Thanks so much for watching.